Hello, my name is Sagafraga, and welcome to the Xenoberg Explained. First, a quick introduction. In the world of video games, there are three franchises collectively known as Xeno. These three franchises are Xenogears, 1998, which consists of just itself, Xenosaga, 2002 to 2006, which has two direct sequels, most recently of all, Xenoblade, 2010 to today, which consists of Xenoblade Chronicles X, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. With stories taking us across the cosmos, on top of living gods, to small and quiet towns, even inside unstoppable mechs battling alongside androids and wielding one of the most legendary swords of all video games. Xeno has cemented itself as one of the most iconic and quality JRPG series alongside the likes of Megami Tensei, Tales, Chrono, and even Final Fantasy. Combining some of the best elements from both science fiction and fantasy to immerse itself in a world of science fantasy, Xeno has sold close to 7 million copies as of 2021. While nowhere near the juggernauts of Pokemon, Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, or even Tales, Xeno has set itself apart from the pack by focusing on themes of psychology, as well as open worlds and expansive lore. While some aspects of these games may seem no different than any other JRPG, as we explore more of this series, however, I hope you'll begin to truly see what makes someone like me rank Xeno as one of the best JRPG series of all time. It is over these multiple video essays that I will begin to explain to you every single remotely interesting fact related to them. This is, after all, an Iceberg video. What's that? You've never heard of an Iceberg video or have seen it everywhere and have only now clicked on one? Well, let me explain it a little. This is an Iceberg, standard issue, and what's cool about these guys is that the tip is only the beginning. So, as we get deeper, the more there really is. So, if we apply this physicality to any topic we explore, we will find the more we look into something, the further down the iceberg we go. You get the picture? Well, if not, that's fine. You'll learn as we go. Anyways, this, however, is the Xenoberg, a 10-tiered chart with over 100 topics combined on all Xeno games, listed from top to bottom in order of obscurity and pure fascination, procured by myself as well as anyone who wanted to help. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. These videos are something that I have been wanting to make for a very long time, as I am a massive fan of each of these games respectfully. Now that I actually am, I hope you'll have just as much fun and intrigue as I do by the end of them. And if nothing else, it'll at least give you some food for thought, or would have just wasted a couple hours of your time. But hey, who cares about wasting time in this day and age? I know most of you don't. Certainly myself included. Which is why most people aren't yet subscribed to the channel, as it only takes, and I clocked it, 0.27 seconds to click the button and ring the bell. I know, shockingly fast. Well, without any further ado, let's begin the expedition down the Xenoberg. Layer 1. The Open Air. This is the absolute basic layer. If you've heard of Xeno or have any remote interest, or no clue about it, you've likely heard of a few of these in conversation or in passing, maybe even in a few memes. So to begin, Super Smash Bros. If you are like me, and the very first time you ever even heard of a Xenoblade, let alone a Shulk, was in Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and 3DS in 2014, then you're not alone. This was the first real huge mainstream spotlight given to anything Xeno related. Shulk, the main protagonist of Xenoblade Chronicles, was released as a base game fighter, nonetheless, and found a massive popularity due to his unique fighting style of arts. We will get into those eventually. And of course his personality. Recently, as of the time I am recording this, however, another representative from the franchise has entered the even more popular Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch. That character, or should I say characters, were Pyra and Mithra from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Needless to say, many were very excited, myself included. It is likely that if you know this franchise and are under the age of 20, you know this franchise from Smash. Thanks, Sakurai. The music slaps. Let me know if you have heard any of these tracks before in any way, shape, or form. Just maybe even one. Well, if you haven't, you have now. The music from Xenoblade, and specifically most Smash Bros. YouTube channels, is quite a common occurrence. Some of my personal favorites include but are not limited to. So yeah, this music is kinda banging, and hopefully you'll see just what I mean. Xenoblade DE. Xenoblade DE, short for Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, is the most recent mainline release in all of Xeno. Coming out in May of 2020, it tells the story of Shulk, Rein, Fiora, Dunban, Charla, Ricky, and Melia, as well as the world around them. It is regarded as one of, if not the best JRPGs on the Switch. It even includes some fresh DLC that tells an epilogue story called Future Connected, which takes place a year after the main game. It is an amazing game, and if you haven't already, give it a shot on your local Nintendo Switch. I for one picked it up day one, knowing just what was in store. Xenoblade 2. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is the successor to the original Xenoblade Chronicles, tells a completely separate story which is wholly unique to itself. Set in a different land than that of the original, it tells the tale of the boy Rex, his blades, Pyra and Mithra, as well as his buddies, Nia, Tora, Poppy, Morag, Brigid, Zeke, and Pandoria. Focusing more on the story, the game was able to be the first Xeno game on the Switch. As such, it sold more than any other Xeno game to that date, carrying a different art style to the original game, and its more cartoony and anime influence. The game quickly grew to be, depending on who you ask, a cherished JRPG classic of the modern era, or a complete load of unadulterated weeby trash. Sorry, but fanbase seems to be kind of divided on this one. So, who's to say for sure? Nsfw Fan Art. Speaking of weeby trash,
it's called hentai, and it's art.
You have no doubt seen the rather suggestive designs of the Xenoblade games by this point in the video. Or if you actually look up this filth. Kidding. Anyways, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, as well as 1, and many other Xeno games, have dealt with the fire since the day they were announced. And it ain't going anywhere. I mean, holy sh**! Just look at that number. I'm really feeling it.
I'm really feeling it.
This is the incredibly meme cry that Shulk lets out in multiple of his attacks throughout his various appearances in both Xenoblade Chronicles as well as Smash Bros. Are you feeling it? Rex Scream. This is the memed line for Rex. It is quite built up to be atrocious, and that's because, frankly, it kinda is. But not in the sense that the actor is bad, but just he had no idea what to do for this. Still love it though. Figures. Like most franchises, anime-inspired JRPGs nonetheless, Xeno itself has a wide variety of figures that are very popular or very, well, not so popular. They have them for Pyromithra, Melia, Shulk, well, an amiibo, and everyone else from Xeno somehow has some sort of figure representation. Some, however, don't. Like Rex. Kinda sucks how he's been excluded from everything. Hope to give the poor guy an amiibo at least. Then at least he'll be even with Shulk. Oof. Smash Alts. In Smash Bros, everyone has an alternate skin to identify them aside from the same fighter that might be on the same screen. Or if you just like them. They have different colors that you can choose from. Shulk and Pyromithra each have a combined 24 different Smash Alts, each with some level of reference to it. For Shulk, the long short of it is that most of his colors identify each of his party members respectfully. Oh, and the one where he's naked. Okay. And then there's Pyra and Mithra. While I would love to go over them, we still have a long way to go. So instead, I'll point you over to Luxon. He has a great video on that topic. Bad character design. Want to do something fun? Okay, pause the video for a moment and head on over to Google Images. While you're there, search up bad character design. Go on, I'll wait. It's quite funny. Yeah, funny. But wasn't that funny? Anyways, thanks a lot, Google. Trashing the homeboy and girl, come on. Alright, well, whatever. She-Hulk. In a rather infamous Smash Bros. Ultimate character ranking by G4, made famous by Smash Tuber and Melee God Hungrybox, a rather older commentator who clearly is only doing this just because it's his job, believes that Shulk is short for She-Hulk.
Shulk. He's not the best character in the game, but he's going in next year.
I thought that was supposed to be short for She-Hulk.
I've never heard that in my life.
Well, I've never heard Shulk in my life. Is that Fire Emblem?
No, he's Xenoblade.
Oh, that's why I haven't heard.
As H-Box said it himself, that has to be one of the boomeriest boomer moments. His words, not mine.
Can I get a B for the boomiest boomer moment of all time? She-Hulk. Go back to your comic books.
I've never heard that in my life.
Okay, so if I haven't said it before, I guess now is the time to do it. So yeah, massive spoilers ahead in this video. Proceed with caution. Repeat, spoilers ahead. Ricky is a dad. Yet this squishy little potato is a dad and he has 12 little pods. He also is in debt. Crippling debt. It's kind of the reason he's on your team. Wait, so he's a hero because he's in debt? Duncan. Okay, so this one is actually pretty funny. On May 27th, 2020, just off the heels of Xenoblade DE's release, IGN, a popular video game and news review site, published their 6-minute review of the game. And oh, what a review it was. From over-harping on one of the core mechanics of battle, referring to one of the most developed characters in the game, Melia, as a weak character, among other atrocities, the cherry on top of the entire video was the narrator completely slaughtering the names of Rhine and Dunban. To get this, Rain and, oh god, Duncan. As commenter OSW puts it best, you are not a clown, you are the whole circus. Bad voice acting. So going back to the more petty criticisms of the Xenoblade franchise, bad voice acting is often cited to be on one, but on both games surprisingly enough. Well, this is in fact not true. Most people hear it for the first time and think it's actually pretty good. It's just a few popular YouTubers and streamers called it that, and it kinda caught on. Now yes, there are some pretty bad moments, like we mentioned before. However, Adam Howden, Sky Bennett, David Mencken, and especially Jenna Coleman, yes, that Jenna Louise Coleman, do an outstanding job. Really, there are some just great moments inside the entire game. I've played a few of them earlier, and I'm not sure if you've seen them, but yeah, these moments really pack a punch. Cosplay. So as any other typically huge franchise, especially a JRPG goes, yeah, you're going to find a lot of cosplay in this community. Not so much as other communities, but it exists, and it's really good to see. Some of my favorites, well, I'm showing you them right now. Anyways, yeah. Alpharad. With nearly 2.5 million subscribers as of the time of recording this video, he is one of the largest Smash tubers, if not the largest. With a very huge community around his channel, he is probably the most popular mainstream YouTuber. His favorite franchise is actually Xenoblade.
No! Holy shit! Holy shit! This is all I wanted! Give it to me! Give it to me!
He loves the games, and he loves the characters, but he really likes the characters in Smash. Also, if I haven't told you already, go on over and subscribe to him. He's a really good channel. He's a little bit more on the family-friendly side, so just be aware of that. So you don't have too much to worry about with him. Lady Mayneth. Okay, so now we're actually going to get into the real spoilers of these games. Don't worry, we're still going to have some jokes and haha funny moments. But anyways, yeah, actual big spoilers ahead. So, Lady Mayneth. This is the soul that inhabits the body of Fiora after we encounter her with the Mechon. Not only that, but she is the soul of the entire Mechonis itself. She is good-willed and a free spirit. She seeks freedom for the people of the world she reigns over. On top of that, she was created alongside another, god in this universe. Essentially, she's the counterpart, the yin to this guy's yang. Zanza. Yep, he's the guy. Zanza is the name of the god of Bionis. He's actually the one, by the end of Xenoblade, you found out is actually behind and responsible for everything that set the plot into motion. Zanza himself resides in the spirit of the Bionis, and is the one who resides in Shulk ever since he was a little kid. We'll go into that a little bit later. Zanza, whose real name is actually Klaus, before he was a god and was a mere man, is conducting experiments on a space station orbiting the Earth, or what seems to be the Earth. That was until he chose to conduct such experiments that would alter reality itself and make him a god. It would create the world in which Xenoblade Chronicles exists in. It would create both the Bionis and the Mechonis, and everything that's inside of the game. Essentially, he's responsible for everything. Rhine Time. This is the battle cry let out by the party member Rhine. He is essentially Shulk's best friend and great party member all around. Great guy all around. So when he's in battle and he gets really in the heat of things, he'll shout this out. But he shouts it out a lot. When is Rhine Time? What happens during Rhine Time? Is Rhine Time real? Are we in Rhine Time? So many questions. Lynn's hair clips. So this is a character from another Xenoblade game that we'll get into later. But this character is a little bit, has a little teeny tiny reference. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, she has the Monado as hair clips. So that's an interesting little Easter egg. Even if you've never played this game, I'm sure you've seen this character before. Don't worry, for those who have played it, we're definitely going to get into this game later. Just hold out. Don't forget me. In Xenoblade 2, there is an enemy type called the Ardanian Soldier. there is one very specific enemy of that type, and his name is Captain Badrig. Captain Padrig? Captain Padrig? I don't know, something like that. While Xenoblade is known for their campy and oftentimes annoying battle dialogues, this one in particular that stands above the rest, "Don't Forget Me," is a meme in which the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 community, because of the sheer amount of times this played during any sort of battle with this guy at the beginning of the game, just kind of became its own meme.
Don't forget me! Think you can take me!
Although, unfortunately, in later patches, they did tone down the amount of times he would say this. Yet, as it remains, a lot of people still kind of love this meme, and they even still want it in the game. So we'll see what happens, but it's looking like it's gonna stay like it is. Layer 2, the tip of the iceberg. So this layer is for anyone who has basically beaten 1 or 2, or honestly at this point you just don't really care about spoilers of any kind, and you're ready to dive in. So most of these are just surface level theories, and anything here or below is going to assume that, yeah, you kind of know what's going on, or again, you just don't care. So let's continue. Xenoblade Wii. So one would assume that this is common knowledge, but no, there's a wide amount of people who don't actually know that, yes, even though Xenoblade Chronicles released recently on the Nintendo Switch, it actually released originally for the Wii in 2010 in Japan and 2012 in North America. So yeah, I don't know how people don't know this, but that's kind of where the main game came from. TLDR, if you didn't know, yeah, this is the original here. Numa. In Xenoblade 2, the characters of Pyra and Mithra are actually one character, referred to as Numa. This name is her actual name given to her by the creators of the space station, however long ago that was. It is Klaus, the architect of Allrest, who actually gives her this name to herself in her blade form. This appearance of this character has a blue aquamarine, sky blue, something or other blue colored hair with a ponytail. It takes on the united personality of both Pyra and Mithra. Playing as Rex, you get the opportunity to choose which character, Pyra or Mithra, you want to call her until you get the information that her name is Numa. With Numa, the characters of Malos, who also has an alternate name, which is called Logos, and then there's a third one, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. With all these 3 core crystals, they make up what is called the Trinity processor. What that is and what it did or does, well again, this is an iceberg, so we'll get into that a little bit later. Scimitar. In the community, in order to avoid spoilers for people who are playing the game, the name for the character Nia's ascended blade form has been dubbed Scimitar. This is the weapon name for her blade name, so instead of actually saying Blade Nia, just call her Scimitar. Again, this is to avoid spoilers and just makes it easier to distinguish between the two in general. On top of that, Nia herself is actually quite an interesting character. She is essentially a human-blade combination, what is known as a flesh eater. Flesh eaters in Xenoblade are, yeah, just the combination of both human and blade forms. This is seen as more or less a taboo amongst many characters in just the world itself. But eventually, you learn the secrets of its truth and power. The Monado Problem. So, in a normal playthrough of Xenoblade 1, in the beginning of the game, it is explained that the Monado cannot harm human beings, or for that matter, any beings from Bionis. This is shown in the cutscene when Rhine takes a hold of the Monado and begins, swinging it carelessly. As a result, the Monado goes out of control and is swung all over the place, inadvertently hitting Fiora in the process. However, it is unable to harm her in any capacity as it just bumps off of her. Later on in Prison Island, Zanza, who is the creator of the Monado, releases the shackles on the blade, so it is able to harm beings of Bionis, and thus harm-faced mechons. However, there are multiple problems in this point prior to the Monado, when it is clearly shown harming human beings or some form of beings of Bionis. Again, the reason behind this is that all beings of Bionis are supposed to return to the Bionis. So the Monado, it would make no sense to harm its own beings. Then, well, yeah, it just makes no sense. Now, there is a reason this is able to happen, well, some have theorized anyways, that is able to do this because at the entrance to Mackinac Forest, Shulk unlocks Monado Purge. This is revealed when he first meets Alvis, and is able to harm the Telethia. As a result, perhaps it is Monado Purge that allows this, but no one really quite knows. And then there's Zord. Yeah, I bet you forgot about this guy, right? So Zord is, he's a faced mechon, and we don't exactly know why Shulk is able to harm him. This is either some sort of a retcon, or something that fell through the cracks, or just wasn't really necessarily explained. So while Shulk is not able to harm people, he is able to harm faced mechon, except he isn't when it's convenient for the plot. Again, he wasn't really able to harm Metalface, but he was able to harm Zord. This isn't explained too well. I mean, he is able to harm him after he falls into that ether mine, the pit of green glowing stuff, but again, it's not really explained. And again, he can hurt Telethia, and well, we all know the truth about those guys. So what's the deal here? No one really knows. This doesn't exactly fit into any sort of theory on top of that, so that makes it even worse for us to discuss. And if anyone has any ideas about this, or if I'm just missing something, leave it down in the comments below. Xenogears. On February 11th, 1998, a game was released for PlayStation 1 from Squaresoft that would usher in the entire Xeno franchise of games and a whole new level of JRPGs, that being Xenogears. This game takes place on a nameless planet and stars our main protagonist, Fei Fong Wang, a young man who lives in a quiet town and teaches martial arts to the children of the village. However, he has a bad case of amnesia, and it's this amnesia that serves as the whole game's plot, unlocking the backstory of Fei and the friends and enemies that he meets along the way. This is directly the plot itself. There are also unique features of this game that only a few Xeno games have replicated in the past. These being the regular use of mechs in this game, which are called gears, a turn-based combat system, and fully animated cutscenes. This game has been credited as the crown jewel of the Xeno franchise and has been untouched essentially in terms of sheer power and greatness since. The few times it has been, it seems to have won out in a majority of the fanbase and public opinion as well. Now, I must let you know that the first topic regarding these games other than Xenoblade Chronicles, this Iceberg will devote just as much time to these other Xeno games as it does Xenoblade. So if you haven't turned back from spoilers for Xenoblade itself, but you don't want to be spoiled for one of the best JRPGs of all time, then yeah, turn back now. Otherwise, we're going to get real and deep with this one. Anyways, okay, now that you're here, I guess time to get spoiled. This is a game which heavily tackles the issues of mental health, family relationships, political corruption, as well as religious corruption as a whole. The main character of Fei actually has a total of 3 separate personalities, maybe even hundreds if you think about it. By the end of the game, you have defeated the main antagonist of Deus, and really Corellian, and as a result, freed Fei from the endless cycle of torture on his mind. And on top of that, you freed the planet. However, what comes next for Fei in the game is unknown, as would eventually be followed up in a sequel. Right? Monolith Soft. Founded in late 1999, Monolith would be the main studio that would go on to develop and craft the rest of the Xeno games. The founding was, however, met with a rocky start. After Square, the studio that had developed and published Xenogears 1 year prior, the team and producer were hoping to move forward with a sequel. However, at the time, Square was pushing all of their efforts into Final Fantasy and all of its products at the time. mainly the Spirits Within movie and continuing the franchise as a whole. When Xenogears only sold a total of 900,000 copies, Square did not see it as financially viable to develop a sequel, despite them stating that if it sold over 1 million, it would receive one. Many to this day still think that no matter what would have happened, it would have never gotten its sequel. As a result, many who worked on Xenogears left Square because of this and many other reasons. Well, it was Square at the turn of the millennium. Apparently it wasn't the best environment. These employees went on to, with the help of Namco's Masuya Nakamura, establish the company in October of 1999. From here, Monolith would work on projects in conjunction with Namco. The first of these three major projects would release 3 years later on February 28th of 2002. Xenosaga 1-3. Xenosaga Episode 1
Der Wille zur Macht.
was released as the first major project for Monolith, being the first game in a 3-part trilogy. Episode 2,
Jenseits von Gut und Böse.
released on June 24th, 2004, and Episode 3,
Also sprach Zarathustra.
released on July 6th, 2006. This trilogy would make up the main series in the franchise of Xenosaga. As for the plot and characters of the games themselves, it's a little bit more complicated. Initially being planned as a 6-part episode game series, many plot points, characters, and ideas were rushed, cut back, or just abandoned entirely in this series. So explaining the changes for each game would take a tiny bit more time than usual, so I will just go over the general idea of the franchise and its characters. The blue-haired girl seen on all 3 games' covers is Cosmos, and is the franchise's most recognizable character as well as its mascot. While not necessarily the main protagonist of each episode, she serves an immense role in each part and at times is really the star of the show. She is an artificial android weapon manufactured by a large conglomerate in the effort to fight, well, I guess, the bad guys of the story, however you want to define them, but don't worry, we'll get into them a little bit later. However, her maker and engineer is the real protagonist of the franchise. I am of course talking about the amazing Shion Uzuki. Shion is essentially the franchise's main protagonist and serves as such for most of the trilogy. Progressing from a shy and shut-in girl to a powerful and confident woman able to shape her future. Shion is perhaps one of the most relatable and impressive protagonists in a JRPG. Now, there are other characters in the story, such as Junior and Momo, as well as a few others who serve as a somewhat main character at some point in the story, going between episodes 1 through 3. Again, everyone kind of takes on a different role at some point, depending on the game. But then going on to the actual story of these games, not as simple. But I will try my best, as I only have ever played and watched these games once, compared to how much I've played both Xenogears and Xenoblade Chronicles 1X and 2. So I apologize, Xenosaga fans. But don't worry, I brushed up on my knowledge and are ready for the rest of the Iceberg. Rotbart. So in every Xenoblade game, there is an early game huge open area. This huge wild open area is home to many creatures ranging all the way from level 1 to... Holy run! This early big level enemy is for most players, this funky fellow. Say hello to Rotbart. He big, he monkey, he will kick your... Unless you're able to beat him, which, in case good for you. Anyways, Monk. Dixon. Dixon is perhaps the most hated character in all of Xenoblade and maybe even Xeno itself. The hate for him comes from his obvious place, if you know the story, and what he does. If you're unaware, essentially he was the one who planned all of Xenoblade's plot, aside from Zanza. He killed Shulk when he was little, he was his father figure, he was the one who pushed him to use the Monado in the first place. He allowed Fiora to be killed, he allowed his battle partner and ward buddy Dunban to be injured unnecessarily, and then he even treated him like a friend afterwards. Later, of course, he rubs it in his face, everyone else's. So yeah, he's truly a detestable person, if you even want to call him that. On top of that, it is never really explained why he's like this. It just comes down to him being one of Zanz's disciples. How unfortunate. You know, for as much hate as he get, I personally would have really liked to see what his character's true origin was. But I understand what they had to do. Lip syncs. In Xenoblade Chronicles, you may notice that sometimes that on scenes which feel off, like a camera cuts away too fast, or a shot lingers on a character for too long, or something awkward like that. Well, if it wasn't obvious, this is a result from a lack of proper lip syncing, or rather, proper translation. This is very evident in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, however, with its bonus DLC story, this is not as evident. That is because they actually put time into syncing up the lips with the speech of these characters in the game. Very strange. Anyways, we'll dive more into Torna, the bonus DLC, later. Miiverse. The Miiverse was a social media platform unique to the 8th generation of Nintendo consoles. This social media allowed users to post how they feel about games and what their experiences and stories they had about them. In the Xenoblade community, this is where some of the memes really took off, like the I'm really feeling it and the Rhine Time meme. Amongst other reasons, the Miiverse has been regarded in history as either a fun experience or a pit of endless despair. Despite all of this, it was discontinued some point depending on where you're from, 2018, 2017, somewhere in there. Essentially, this was the home of a lot of Xenoblade community for a long time. Chugga Conroy. Hey everyone, it's Chugga Conroy, making his debut on YouTube all the way back on July 26, 2006. Chugga, as he is lovingly referred to in his community, is a relatively popular Let's Player on YouTube, and popularized the common format we even see to today. Beginning with his first game he ever made a series on, Earthbound, all the way to today. He has had a major impact on the YouTube gaming scene, and as a result of his Let's Plays, he has even spread the love and passion of both Xenoblade 1 and 2 through his in-depth Let's Plays of both series. As I write this, he has actually been in the middle of his Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Let's Play for over half a year, and he's only just barely halfway through the actual body of the game itself. If you haven't already, you should go check him out if you want some time. He is, if not one of the best Let's Players on YouTube. Also, just be aware that anytime he Let's Plays a Xeno game, one of the characters gets announced for Smash. So there's that. Xenoblade 3DS. Perhaps one of the most obscure releases of Xenoblade Chronicles, Xenoblade Chronicles for 3DS was released in early 2015 for the new Nintendo 3DS. However, again, this is not the regular 3DS, but it was released for the exclusive new Nintendo 3DS. Being one of only about 4 games being released at retail with this particular trait, it was, however, what was most people's first experience with Xenoblade following Shulk and Smash 4. For the most part, it is the same game as it is on the Wii, or the port on the Wii U. However, there are a few differences. For one, it's compatible with Amiibo, as well as there being a jukebox setting. Neat. Sakurai likes Pyra better. Following the reveal of Pyra and Mithra in Smash Bros. Ultimate in late February of 2021, a Mr. Sakurai Presents was announced a week after, and the week after that it aired. In the presentation itself, Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of Smash itself, revealed that he actually likes Pyra better than Mithra. In his own words, however, if we're talking about the fighting style, only the fighting style, yeah, just the fighting style. This was an obvious play at dodging which one he actually likes better overall. However, just by looking at that smug smile, we all know that Pyra is actually his favorite. Depending on who you were at this time, this is either great or pretty sucky news. Pretty funny, actually. The Ultimate Face. So, what is this Ultimate Face? Is it some kind of faced mecha that is hard and extremely difficult to beat, or is even locked behind some secret code? Or is this something more mysterious? Nope, It's this.
I've got a good rhythm going.
Yeah, this is kind of weird. It's got like the 1,000-yard stare going on. Like, come on, Sakurai. You basically kind of screwed up on this one, didn't you? I mean, you made the girls look great, but like, come on. He needs some work, man. Alvis is Ontos. So now for our first big theory, if you can even call it that anymore. Theory that is, Alvis, the mysterious man you encounter throughout your adventures in Xenoblade 1, is actually the third core in the Trinity processor, Ontos. There are many, many obvious clues, keys, and Easter eggs that point the players of both games into this direction. For one, it is stated by Klaus in Xenoblade 2 that there were originally 3 cores in the Trinity processor, Ontos, Logos, and Pneuma. These 3 cores would go on to form the cornerstones of the blades in the Xenoblade 2 universe. However, during the creation of this new universe, Ontos, whom triggered a space-time transition event, disappeared forever. Now we know that in Xenoblade 2, Pneuma and Logos are each Pyra, Mithra, and Malos, respectively. However, we do not officially know or what became or who became Ontos. Except we totally do. Yeah, it's pretty damn obvious if you played these 2 games that Ontos is Alvis. As we see in 2, half of Klaus has disappeared into another dimension, and we hear the voice of Shulk when we are close to victory against Malos, who wields Klaus's power. When we beat Zanza in Xenoblade 1, it is revealed that he has, word for word, the same point and backstory as Klaus from Xenoblade 2, and vice versa. Obviously, this part of Klaus that was torn away from his home dimension in Xenoblade 1 was the Klaus who went on to become Zanza in the Xenoblade 1 universe. Along with himself, he took Ontos, who was then awoken as Alvis at some point, and then later on became the Seer for the High Entia. This is made even more obvious that Alvis is Ontos in Definitive Edition because the developers of the game went out of the way to remodel Alvis's once signature key necklace into a strange and definitely not obvious at all, definitely not obvious, maroon core crystal-like necklace with an attachment or something along those lines. But yeah, it's all but confirmed at this point that Alvis is Ontos, and he is the direct key. Key. That was his necklace before. To the Xenoblade worlds. On top of that, Alvis disappears at the end of Xenoblade 1, and we don't know exactly where he goes. We also know that at the end of Xenoblade 2, the Conduit, the source of Klaus, Alvis, Malos, and Pyromithra's power, has decided to essentially nope out of existence in Xenoblade 2, and potentially 1, if it even existed in there. As it is stated by Klaus himself, the Conduit, the power whose Rex and Pyro wields through the core crystal, comes leaking out of some far-flung dimension. So where are those dimensions, and what exactly is the Conduit? Well, you know the drill at this point.
We get there when we get there.
Boob candle. Going back to the YouTuber, Chukka Conroy, this topic is a specific meme about his Xenoblade 2 Let's Play that arose when he revealed that that was the game he was going to Let's Play. That video, titled Climbing to a New Let's Play, I know clever, it always is with this guy, a quite comedic video fashioned of him finding everyday objects in his house, as well as certain other things, and even his cat, and positioning them as puppets as if they were characters in the game itself. For Pyra, however, he got a little bit too clever. What he did was take a red-colored candle, strap 2 softballs to it, and wrap a cloth around both the candles and the balls. This created a new nickname for Pyra. Boob candle. Yeah, it's a bit of a newer meme, but it's a welcome one at that. For obvious and big reasons, 2 very big reasons, this meme has seen very recent and popular success, on top of it just being new. Frankly, I think it's pretty funny. Subreddits. So just as in any huge franchise with a cult following, yep, there are a lot of subreddits for this one. As a matter of fact, when creating this Xenoberg, I actually reached out to a lot of people on Reddit and asked them what I should include, or if there's anything I should remove, edit, or just change in general. They've been really helpful, and on top of that, it's just a great community overall. Probably the best place to talk about Xenoblade, or just make your opinions or feelings known about the franchise. If you haven't already, hop on over. Even though, yep, it's Reddit. Oh. Gorg's design. So there is a character in Xenoblade 2 whose design has a history of entertaining controversy. That character is Gorg. He is a blade of water element and a great axe weapon type. His design is that of a human male with elven features and an aquatic flair. He also has large mechanical hands. Yeah. Now, if you notice something even more about his design, it begins to have a flair of familiarity for most people, at least. They begin to believe that this came from the character's similar design characteristics to characters of the popular manga and anime, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Many began spreading the rumor that Gorg was himself a rejected JoJo character of some sort, or maybe even of the most recent part. Somehow, though, he had his design sent over to Monolith Soft to be used as a blade. Well, obviously this is false. It does remain an interesting tale. I, for one, do in fact see the inspiration and similarities between him and a select few stands in JoJo. However, the designer herself, Xenosaga, I think. I hope. I really don't want to butcher these. I love these people way too much for that. Anyways, she confirmed it herself on her Twitter that, in fact, Gorg was not based off of any sort of JoJo design. A little bit of a shame, but at the same time, if she's not getting harassed or, dragged on about it, that's much better. I mean, come on. Land of Challenge. As part of the DLC pack for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, a new game mode was included. That game mode was the Land of Challenge. This mode includes the ability to partake in unique battles against certain extremely powerful enemies in the game. As a result, one would get rewards from this, these rewards being granted in the form of Napon Stone. You can then use these Napon Stones to trade in for special prizes and even special items and a few other key select things. However, the biggest part of this game's update in the challenge mode was the addition of new blades. However, these were not blades at all, but actually, yes, Shulk and Pyromithra from Xenoblade 1. Yeah, most people thought this would be impossible, or just flat out just lost their minds with this announcement. But as it turns out, the two of them just happened to stumble upon, just as our main cast does, this Land of Challenge in a, rather questionable manner. Anyways, these two sets of characters wind up in this Land of Challenge, a strange land that is apparently set in no known universe in the Xenoblade timeline, universe, or anything itself. Rather, it is a pocket dimension and is governed by a being known as the Napon Archsage. This little guy is apparently 100 million times the age of Torna. So he is quite the mysterious little Napon. His appearance, despite being introduced in Xenoblade 2, resembles that of a Magna Forest Napon from Xenoblade 1. The characteristics of that are that they are smaller and more colorful than the Napon in Xenoblade 2. They actually don't even wear any clothes at all. Oh god. However, Xenoblade 2 is not his only appearance. He also has appeared in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition as himself, and is found in the Shrine of the Napon Archsage, who allows the player to participate in the mode of Time Attack. Again, you can get many rewards from this mode as well, but there is no crossover moment like there is in Xenoblade 2. Essentially, what is the secret of this Napon Archsage and anything else like this? We see him in a couple other places, but we don't know exactly who or what he is. We'll get into this guy a little bit further on, but for now, just know that the Land of Challenge exists. Rex outfit in Breath of the Wild. In the Nintendo Switch title, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, there is a special costume that can be used on the main player character, Link. This costume, which provides no real true benefit to the player, is an outfit which resembles Rex's salvaging uniform. This was released in Breath of the Wild to coincide with the release of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in December of 2017, nearly 6 months after the release of Breath of the Wild. You can obtain this outfit in the game if you go to a certain location, or rather locations in the game, at night and look for falling stars and go to their locations. There you will get his pants, top, and helmet. I actually didn't do this till last year, but hey, you should do it too. If I didn't explain it well enough, there are plenty of YouTube videos to do that for you. Safe for Work fan art. So now that we're a little bit further into this journey, we've gotten beyond all the smut that accumulates and floats to the top, and we're now beginning to see some of the more beautiful fan art of these games. Seriously, some of this stuff is really good. If you haven't looked it up, Xenoblade, Saga, Gears, and Chronicles all have great fan art. Seriously. Again, this is another reason you might want to hop over to the subreddits where you can find a lot of this stuff. If not, just go on any other internet art forum, DeviantArt, anything else. Yeah, pretty good stuff. Pyromithra's final words. So, in the very last cutscene of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where you're floating down from the space station after having defeated Malos, it is revealed that the space station cannot, I guess you could say, hold the whole function of just being blown up in that whole battle. So, Numa decides to sacrifice herself in an effort to prevent this. Rex and the gang make it back down and they see that the world is entering a new phase, a brand new world. But at the cost of Numa herself. However, after the cutscene and the credits, there is a bonus scene in which, the core crystal reawakens. And with this, Pyra and Mithra are two separate characters. Everyone's shocked, and even Poppy runs up and gives them a big hug. Poppy even runs up and gives them a big hug. It's a pretty great scene altogether. And then at the end of it, again, this is one of those split path opportunities from choosing either Pyra or Mithra earlier on in the game as the name you want to call Numa. It'll go over to the camera and it'll pan over to either Pyra or Mithra. And then their mouth moves and they say something. What do they say? No one really knows, but it's kind of hinted that they say something along the lines of, "I love you, Rex," or they say, "I'm so glad to be here," or there's a joke that Pyra says, "Get over here," or Mithra says, "Get over here." Pyra would probably say something a little bit more on the, not so tsundere thing, kind of. Anyways, so we don't really know what they say. It's always been more of a open-ended question, I guess you could say. My personal headcanon is I just like to think they say, "Hello, Rex," or something kind of nice like that. Because we actually don't know if their memory was wiped following that, because, again, the conduit went away, and on top of that, their core crystal was deactivated. So, who's really to know? Mithra Foresight. So in Xenoblade Chronicles, there has been a continuation of a specific battle mechanic from Xenoblade 1 to 2. However, the mechanic itself presents itself in a different way. Of course, what I'm talking about is the Foresight mechanic, or the ability to see the future. This is a signature of the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise, except for one of the Xenoblade Chronicles games. But this feature makes its appearance in Xenoblade Chronicles 1, where this is a quirk of Shulk that he's able to do, and it plays a direct role into mechanics of battling. However, for Xenoblade 2, this is made different, as with the character Mithra, this is a passive ability versus an active thing you have to do in battle. Now, this ability is a little bit different from Shulk's, as it sees the immediate future and allows characters to combat this and dodge very quick movements as such. However, in Xenoblade 1, Shulk is able to see the far future with this. He's able to see a couple days or a certain amount of time ahead, but he's also able to see directly in battle itself. However, with Pyra and Mithra, really just Mithra. This is a little bit more different and difficult to explain, but essentially they don't have the exact same workings as Shulk's visions do. Again, this is something that comes leaking out of the conduit, so we're not exactly sure how to explain this. But it is what it is, and they both have visions of some sort. Mithra's just is a little bit different and can't exactly see the future itself, more like immediate actions. But damn, is that a great battle mechanic. Pro Controller. So, to coincide with the release of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the Switch, throughout the early months of this release, there was a limited time, unique Pro Controller for the Nintendo Switch released. This design was based off of Pyra from the game. It has a slash, I guess you could say the signature emerald cross slash, over on the left side of the Pro Controller, while it has the Aegis sword as somewhat engraved on the right side, or really just left or right side depending on where you're looking, side of the controller, with the grips and underside of the controller made a pinkish red color that resembles the main color of Pyra herself. However, there is a joke that with one of the costumes in the game, it looks exactly like her, well, yeah, that. So you can make of that what you will. But this Pro Controller has kind of been more of a collector's item. And a lot of people are in search for it, especially now that they're in Smash Bros. Fun fact about this Pro Controller, actually, is that it has a differently designed D-pad than that of the original. There's actually a tiny little ball joint in the center of the D-pad for this one, whereas with the original there isn't. So you get a little bit more control, so that's why it's kind of sought after, more than the others at least. But, yeah, yeah, I kind of own one of these. I don't really know what to say about it, so here's a Scott the Woz meme.
I own a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 controller and have no interest in the game. I feel like I'm on a list somewhere.
Dahlia Body Horror. Yep, this is a character. This is a character in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This is something that was designed and approved for a game that is rated T for Teen. How on earth? This is horrifying. Oh my god, what have we done? Protect Poppy. So this is a meme that is, I guess you could say lesser known in the wider community. However, I see it spring up every once in a while. This meme is based around the character of Poppy from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And it more or less revolves around how she is just a sweet, overall, nice character, and is pretty wholesome in general, at least compared to her creator. So this meme just kind of sees the character and acknowledges how wholesome they are, and gotta protect her with everything we got. Poppy, honestly, probably top 3 favorite Xeno characters of all time, at least for me, anyways.
What's going on?
Dog mode.
Jin's original role. In Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the character of Jin is one marked by strife, turmoil, and loss. Likely the most tragic character in the whole game, Jin as a person is enveloped by the ideas of memories and what they mean to drivers and blades like himself. We find a key moment in that interest arises from a moment in the DLC prequel game, Torna, the Golden Country. That moment is when Jin and his friends find lodgings at a small village and encounter an older gentleman who actually remembers Jin from almost 90 years ago. Jin, now as a result of hearing this, goes to the location the old man gives him in reference to his past life. That past life, however, was as the Paragon of Torna, as which he served in the Territorial Defense Corps. Now, what is that role exactly? Well, Paragons are defined as the perfect example of whichever subject they are in reference to. So Jin is essentially the perfect Tornan blade, an emblem of their culture. But, again, what did he do, and what was his purpose? It is likely that we will never really find out. We can, however, make some educated guesses. We know Torna was regarded as one of the world's superpowers before it fell, and from his given title, we can assume that Jin was a powerful military blade used in the defense of Torna's borders and territories. We also know that Jin does not like to fight. Perhaps something happened to him in that previous life which made him hate fighting. Perhaps that memory, or at least the idea of it, carried on into his next life to define him as the man we know. Songs. So in each and every Xeno game, each game essentially has a theme song or rendition or some sort of lyrical arrangement in it. These present themselves in moments of strife, peril, at the beginning, or just something to listen to throughout the game. These are some of my favorites right here, and I'll list them in the video right now. Most of these came as an idea from the creators in the original Xenogears, something that would make it stick out amongst the pack in other JRPGs, and it caught on in not only Xeno, but in JRPGs and video games as a whole. Now, most of these have left a pretty good impact. I'd say that some of my all-time favorite tracks are directly as a result of this choice. Persona, that uses it a lot. Final Fantasy has a couple good tracks, and you know what? It's just great. I'm so glad they did this. Anyways, most of these musical arrangements, however, do have some sort of significance, or they allude to some point in the plot. Music callbacks. So in each and every one of these lyrical arrangements and songs, the lyrics often allude to something in the game. For example, here,
If I recall it was you wish that I would stay.
here,
Through this light was you. I know it now. Beyond the sky, this new place you see.
here,
Broken mirror, a million shades of light. The old echo fades away, but just you and I can find the answer, and then we can run to the end of the world. We can run to the end of the world.
and here.
And I know you will find that someone who will help you move on.
If these haven't made it obvious yet, then you might want to do a little bit more research before going deeper into this iceberg. Some of these songs even reference each other, even other games. This is honestly one of my favorite parts of Xeno as a whole. I just think it's something that's really underappreciated in most of these games. Races in Xeno. So in Xenoblade Chronicles, Xenogears, and Xenosaga, there are a bunch of races throughout the game. However, there are some other lesser-known races. The main races, of course, are human beings, Nopon, anything like the Nopon, robots, of course, then there's the Mechon, which are, they're robots too. And then, besides that, there are a few others. These are mostly human variations, like the Hyantia, the Gormadi, or anything like that. However, if you go even deeper, you realize that some of the enemy types are actually races too. For example, the Turkin, and then those lizard guys. I'm forgetting their names right now. I'll put them on screen. But they're actually races too. So if you didn't know that, yeah, there are more races in this game. They're just not as developed as the other ones, shall we say. Mithra's cooking. So it is an ongoing joke in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that Pyra is kind of the better version of Mithra. This makes itself most evident in, well, their cooking. It is revealed in Torna the Golden Country, the DLC bonus game, which is a prequel to Xenoblade 1, that Mithra, prior to Pyra's awakening, is seen as, well, not a very good cook. So basically, why is her cooking blurred out? I mean, we know it's bad, obviously, by their reactions, but what is going on here? Costume references. So in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, there are actually special costumes that you can get as a result of playing Land of Challenge. Some of these costumes may seem a little bit odd or different from the others with their coloring. As such, one can expect that, yeah, a lot of these are references. Most of these are to previous Xeno games or other characters in Xenoblade Chronicles itself. I'm not going to go into all of them. Again, there are other YouTubers out there. Luxon, actually, himself has made quite the in-depth video on each and every one of these costumes references, so I'll just point you in the direction over there. However, some of my select favorites are Ember Cake Zeke. Obviously, that's a reference to Bart from Xenogears. And then, I think, I don't have the name pulled up right now, but I think it's called Nano Orange Cutie Pie. And this is obviously a reference to Emeralda from Xenogears. Again, I have more of an attachment to Xenogears than I do Xenosaga. And again, I'm sorry about that. But these are just some of my favorites right now. Turters. These turters. Monado's side effects. In the beginning of Xenoblade Chronicles, it is revealed that the Monado can only be wielded by those whom it chooses. That person in the beginning is Dunban, however, he does not have full control over it. Because of this, there are certain side effects that he receives, and that eventually take their toll on him. Later on, however, it is Shulk who comes to possess and even wield the Monado with full control over its power. Of course, we know the obvious reason for this. Shulk was Zanza, and then eventually overcame Zanza. But what we don't know is why there are still these drawbacks to people like Dunban who use the Monado. However, if we look into Xenoblade 2, we may find somewhat of an answer. As we know from this game, where the conduit exists, it is the source of all three Aegises and their power. It is also the source of the Architect's power, the one who created an intentional universe and an unintentional universe. We also know that there are drivers and blades in the intended universe. When a person, however, wants to become a driver, they need a certain aptitude. If that aptitude is not met, there are serious consequences to that person wanting to resonate with the blade. Drivers and blades thus receive their power, in a sense, from the conduit, as they communicate all of their info into the Aegis cores, who then compute it and relay it to the architect and the conduit to then make certain decisions and judgments. Therefore, it can be implied that if a person possesses no real use to the conduit and architect, there would be no reason for them to resonate with the blade and communicate that information. Now we can look back at our main subject, the Monado from the unintended universe. We now know that the Monado was a creation of the conduit and its informational systems. While this unintended universe, as far removed as it may seem to where the conduit resides, still, there is information leaking into that split universe. Thus, we can conclude that the reason someone like Dunban was not able to fully control the Monado was because the conduit determined him not to be useful enough after a certain point. However, there could be a variety of other certain implications that we can make from this. And there you have it, the first two layers of the Xenoberg. Now that we have gotten most of the basic level stuff out of the way, we can get into the real sauce of the franchise. The next video of this Iceberg should begin to focus on more of the other Xeno games besides Xenoblade 1 and 2. Yeah, I know they flooded this first video, but hey, it can't be helped given how immensely popular they both are. Anyways, I want to thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. And, if I could add a personal anecdote, this is my first video that's over 20 minutes long, let alone over a whole hour. So thank you. It really does mean a lot to me. But it would also mean a lot if you subscribed. Again, only 0.27 seconds. Anyways, I'll see you next time for the second part of the Xenoberg Explained.